Afternoon, everyone. This is Nicholas J. Orcutt here again today. Hope everyone's having a good day. I I also hope everyone can hear me all right. My entire setup kind of got derailed the other day. Um, so I'm here today again. Most of you know, I thank all of you who showed support yesterday for me just being completely sunburned and exhausted. Um, I acknowledge for most people when I say something that I'm going to take a day off. Most people say, obviously take a day off. It's you've earned it. Do whatever. Take a day off. It's difficult for me. Um, this is more than a passion project for me. I genuinely believe that there's something good that we're making here, that we're doing all together as a community. We're building something better than myself, and it's a huge, huge honor to do. Um, that being said, I had I had a 24-hour shift. Me and Tyler worked together yesterday. We went almost nonstop all day. If you're ever curious, Mondays are the absolute worst day to ever have to call an ambulance. Just don't do it. It's hospitals suck. Those are the days. So I figured today there are a couple different topics I just wanted to talk on quick, and there are topics that I want to talk on that it's not so much that I want to write an article or an essay about. It's just things that I think are worth mentioning. I have two of those, and then on top of that, I also have just I could want to hit EMS stuff, right? I want to hit paramedic stuff. So I want to start with the fact that all over the news, constantly, the news, TikTok, everybody, all you're hearing from people is that it's the reflecting pool, right? Everybody's talking about the reflecting pool. Why are 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 we truly surprised that the reflecting pool and Donald Trump is nothing but another con against us? Does that really shock anybody that Donald Trump has found another way to grift us? Uh, I'm not excusing it. I'm not saying that it's okay. I'm not saying it's right. I just don't think that that's what we need to be focused on when the world is almost quite literally falling apart now, right? We have, Iran is on the verge of becoming significantly bigger than it's ever been. Israel's doing everything it can to sabotage us. Our economy's in the tank, and we're worried about a reflecting pool. It is a distraction. It is a simple, easy distraction. It's a way to ignore from the fact that the Epstein files are still being refused to be released. It's just it's a distraction from everything else. Um, and it's the administration finally found something that people are going to get all upset about for no real reason other than it just gives them something to complain about, right? And in no way am I making an excuse for what's happening with the reflecting pool, but it's a level of stupid onto stupid. When you take a monument and you repurpose it and you paint it and you seal it and then add just water from the Potomac and expect it to work, that's one of the dumbest possible moves ever. The actual cost to change that would be, I think it's like 4 times as much as they already spent because they'd have to change the actual pipes that lead into the reflecting pool, and they can't do that. It would tear up everything. So it's not even worth us being upset about at this point. It's a distraction from the real news. And that's why I don't know about the rest of you. I get really irritated that I'll turn on ABC, I'll turn on nightly news, and the leading story is the reflecting pool this or the reflecting pool that. Like, I don't give a shit. At this point, I don't. Shocker. Donald Trump has done something that has caused the American people to spend an ungodly amount of money to enrich one of his friends. Genuinely, if anybody is surprised by that, I would be willing to talk to them about it, because that just means they haven't been paying attention, right? You don't get surprised by something that if you've been paying attention the entire time. So just when you see that, just know that this is It's part of the distraction plan. It's part of what they always do. It's part of the we're going to run a game so people aren't really paying attention to what's going on. Meanwhile, we have the district attorney that off the top of my head, I can't think of his name, Donald Trump's personal lawyer, the one he's the one that has been just meeting with Congress, and he's admitted that, oh, we've released all the Epstein files when they absolutely haven't. They absolutely have not released the Epstein files in full. Um, the Epstein files, the way they are right now, are not how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a clear transparency across the board. Me and you are supposed to be able to just see everything unredacted. That's how the law is. There's no middle ground on that. The law says that we need to be able to have it for the public unredacted. Yet they refuse to do it. The only way to see the unredacted files is if you are a senator or congressman or a representative and you go into the DOJ's actual building. That is ridiculous. That defeats the entire purpose of the Transparency Act, and it goes ahead and just insults us. It insults you, insults me. It says that we are not worthy to know what's in there, especially when we already know, right? We already know. We know what they're going to find. We know it's going to be all over that. It is 100% just the most terrible things in the world being done by the richest men in the world. It's the history of America, right? Rich men doing terrible things and then covering it up. But that is the big distraction this week. Meanwhile, we have like Tulsi Gabbard coming out with open corruption happening there. She her own intelligence agency came out and explained how she was skipping the entire process of the chain of information and handing things directly to the White House. She would actually walk the information to the White House. So there's so much actual dangerous corruption happening, and we're not seeing it because the news is more focused on the fact that, the Potomac is turning a reflecting pool green. It's going to happen. It's what happens. If anything, I think we should be appreciating the fact that the reflecting pool looks like shit because it reflects our government right now, right? There's no better representation than shitty water reflecting a shitty government. The fact that it's been such a distraction for everybody has just blown me away. And especially when there's so many other important things happening. So I did have a list, and of course, when I went to open everything, I lost my list of notes that I had, and that's going to be frustrating. That's going to be really frustrating because me trying to go through all of my notes to find my notes for today are just going to be buried in another pile of notes. So the other big thing that I really want to talk to you about today, the local primaries and elections are happening. If you can vote, do vote, please. Early voting started last week, I think, last Friday. But if you can vote, do. It's incredibly important. And if you need any other reasoning for how important it is now, you can simply just look at the fact that AIPAC has been spending a record amount of money already on primaries. That's insane. Like, we are in a world where primary spending is starting to outdo like general election spending. That should tell you exactly what AIPAC and Israel have planned for this country. They want their people in. These centrist Democrats, those are their best friends. Because a centrist Democrat is nothing but a Republican with a blue tie, right? And by no means am I saying that if you are not a Democrat, if you're a Republican and you're proud of your Republican, fine. Vet your people. It's time that we stop letting these big money people in who are going to vote against our interest. I vote Democratic Socialist across the board usually. I believe in that model. I think Zoran has proven that the model works. I know there are a lot of naysayers out there about, oh, Zoran did this, Zoran did that. The man has done amazing things in New York City. The people of New York City are happy with him, which, can never, if you're ever curious, you got to look at what the people are happy with somebody, and especially New York City, is a New Yorker. Like, and I live in upstate New York, but as a New Yorker, when it comes to like New York City, those people are fucking miserable all the time. You will never find a bigger group of miserable fucking people than New Yorkers. No, upstate New Yorkers. Upstate New Yorkers, we don't say hi. We just fuck you. That's our greeting. We don't believe in saying hello to each other. But vet your politicians seriously. The piece I wrote recently about my local election with Magnarelli. Magnarelli came out and they had a debate with him and Mo Brown. And Magnarelli, who is a county level, well, he's a state politician, but he's, local for me, like upstate New York, very small market, not a big area. He came out and it came out how he's refusing to endorse Democrats who aren't centrist. He's refusing to endorse anybody who doesn't play with money. And that's across our nation. I'm like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Why is this how our country has turned out? Why do we have people in these places of power that we're putting there who don't care about us? All this going on. Meanwhile, we have Delaney Hall in Jersey, which you can see from MetLife Stadium, where the World Cup is a fucking concentration camp. And I don't say that like hyperbole. It's not hyperbole. That is a concentration camp. It fits every legal definition of a concentration camp. The only thing we haven't officially found yet is a death toll from inside, and that's because they're not telling people anymore. They used to actually give us a number of people that died inside. What they started doing was actually kicking people out when they were about to die, or once they died, and they were saying they weren't there. That is a legal workaround for a really shitty thing to do. So that's where we should be focused, not the reflecting pool. Like, I don't give a fuck about the reflecting pool. I don't think any of you give a fuck about the reflecting pool. Like, who cares at this point? Blow the fucking thing up, pave over it, whatever. It was great when we had it. What it stood for before was great. It used to actually represent, that reflection back on ourselves. It made sense. It doesn't anymore. And I don't think we need to be a nation of monuments. What do we need monuments for? What is worth memorializing currently in our nation? What part of our history? These make America great again, people, all this, that, and the other thing. What part of our history? Where in our history? It's no longer a great nation. It's sad. And it's not like it was a great nation 10 years ago either. We are a prison nation. We have turned into the modern day Australia. That is one of our biggest industries, private prison complex. That isn't saying that I think that people who break the law shouldn't serve time, but our prison system doesn't perform and it doesn't fix anything. Our prison system just takes criminals and makes criminals better criminals. But so, with all that stuff out of the way, and again, I had to get that reflecting pool thing up because I'm so over that reflecting pool, like the reflecting pool. Literally, I wake up and the first thing I see on my phone is about the reflecting pool. Over it. But instead, I figured I'd actually talk about what I do personally, like for my job. Figured I'd talk about ambulances and EMS a little bit, because I'll write about it here and there, and I talk to a lot of people in person. The amount of people that have no idea what my job really is, I guess is a good way to say it. Like, they don't understand what I do. People see an ambulance go by and you just assume, oh, it's somebody's hurt, somebody's injured. The the truth is that the way ambulances work in this country, so we always say mental health care in this country is terrible, right? We don't have a mental health care system. We don't take care of the people who are mentally ill. We don't treat our mentally ill well. We don't take care of people who genuinely need the services. Our answer to it is either institutionalize or hospitalize or put them in prison. We're not fixing the problem. We're not helping people. EMS is somewhat similar, right? So it's not a system designed to help people. Now, I work. I've been doing this for a long time now. I don't go on calls not to help people. The reason I do my job, and any provider will tell you that we're in EMS not because we get paid great, because we don't. We get paid most a brand new. What was it? I saw that the other day. A brand new paramedic starts out at like $20 an hour, um, which is insane for what the job is. But so we don't do this job because we make money. We do this job because we want to help. But the system's not designed for us to help. So I'm going to like give an example, right? So say you're with your say you're with your significant other, and your significant other, let's say you're a 45-year-old woman who's married, and your husband starts clutching his chest saying, I have chest pain. You call 911. Yeah, when you call 911, what's your emergency? What's your address? When you tell them it's chest pain, they're going to say, do you have any baby aspirin to take? And they'll make you take 324 vet baby aspirin. That's 481 milligrams of baby aspirin. They'll send an ambulance. Now, as a preface, some places have the fire department has medics or has an ambulance. If that is your area, I apologize ahead of time, because there's one truth about fire departments. They don't like doing EMS. They do not like being medics. They don't. They want to be firefighters. Um, Paramedics, real paramedics, those of us who do it. Like I turned down a fire job a couple of years ago because I'm a medic. I don't want to be. I don't care about property. You know, um, I'm sorry if that's callous. I don't give a shit about your property. I'm not running into a burning building to pull out your sofa. That's shit happens. Um, I care about your actual health. But so you call 911 and they give you the spiel, and an ambulance comes. An ambulance, we drive there and we pull up. And when we pull up, we'll pull our stretcher out of the ambulance. Usually bring it in front of the front door. And like really quick, that stretcher weighs probably about 180 pounds. It's not going upstairs. So if you ever see an ambulance coming, you're like, oh, you can just bring it right inside. I can't. I'm not carrying 180 pounds inside and putting your loved one on that stretcher and carrying it back downstairs. That's just not happening. I am way too old to be trying that shit. I'll need an ambulance for myself. But so we'll show up, we put our stretcher out front, and I'll grab my monitor and we carry a bag. It's called an airway bag. The airway bag has, our bag valve mask, the thing we put over your mouth to help you breathe, has like my intubation stuff in it, has my blood pressure cuff, my pulse oximeter, glucometer, it has just different things. And it's the quick stuff that I might need just immediately. And my monitor is the one that has my EKG. I can read has my electric blood pulse, blood pressure cuff, has my pulse ox, has my end tidal. And the end tidal is a really cool one. It actually lets me see how your lungs exchange gas. So instead of the pulse ox, which just gives me a number, it says how saturated your oxygen level is, I can see how well you're exchanging gas. It's a massive difference. It's one of the best clinical tools we have. But so I'm going to go inside and I'm going to, have somebody lead me to the person complaining of chest pain. And I'm going to talk to him. First off, if you call an ambulance for somebody else and we show up and I start talking to the patient, please don't talk over them. The amount of times I'm like, sir, ma'am, what's going on today? How come we're here? And the family member starts talking. You are now making it so I can't even assess this patient. You have now completely just derailed me and how I'm assessing your assessment of the patient. Please don't do that. But so, I'm going to say the person has chest pain. And especially, and the reason I said 45, especially the age 45, that age between 45 and 60, especially in men, they don't want help. They're stubborn. Um, if you're ever curious, old white men might be the most frustrating demographic for us to deal with because they just don't want help. And so I'll ask, what's going on? Well, I just have a little bit of chest pain, or this hurts, or when I cough, this happens. Okay, you know, I'm looking at you. I can tell from your medical history you have high blood pressure, you have diabetes, you have high cholesterol, all these things. Um, I think we should get you to the hospital. And they'll say, well, can you just check to see if I'm not having a heart attack? And so I can do an EKG right there. Not only can I do an EKG, I can print it out, I can read it, I can interpret it. I can't tell you that you're not having a heart attack. And it's a twofold thing. First off, I can't do blood work. Um, it's not that we can't. It's just the little iStat machines that they use in the hospital. Those little things that they carry around. It looks like a tricorder from Star Trek. They are so temperamental that if you move them the wrong way, you have to recalibrate it every time. And you can't put it in an ambulance that moves. It would just, even if it was in a holster that tried to keep it as straight as possible, every bump's going to make it. So it has to be recalibrated. So it's instantly useless. And then on top of that, the amount of money it costs is insane. Um, and that is the gold standard for clinical work is blood work. So I'll tell people, I'll take an EKG and I'll see what's going on, but I can't tell you that you're not having a heart attack. Even if every part of me is like, you're not having a heart attack, I can't tell you that you're not having a heart attack. And this is where we're getting into the problem with what EMS is. I'm not allowed to tell you that your EKG is completely clear or completely fine. I can't tell you that you don't need to go to the hospital. Um, it is, it puts me at a risk, obviously, to get sued because if anything happens, I'm liable. But on top of that, the agencies, and again, I work for a not for profit, so it's not like we're making money. I know the guys who run my agency. None of them are driving Beamers. In fact, I'm pretty sure one of them Ubers to work. Um, but we're not making money off of you. But we also don't get paid unless you go to the hospital. And that incentivizes the field not to move forward. It incentivizes keeping medics who, like myself, I trained for years on doing what I do. Um, I've taken classes. I do massive amounts of training. Uh, it incentivizes us to stay baseline, right? It doesn't. What's the purpose of me trying to get better clinically if I already know what I need to know to get you to the hospital? I'm not making the world better. I'm not helping you. And if I don't take you to the hospital, then we don't get paid. So it's a really fucked up system. Um, so there are multiple times that we'll go to people who will be like, do I need to go to the hospital? And every part of me is like, I don't want it. I don't think this person needs to go to the hospital. The truth is, and a lot of people forget this, the sickest place in any city is the hospital. If you want to find the biggest collection of sick people, go to the hospital. That's where everybody is sick. That's where everybody is struggling. Don't go if you don't need to. I can't tell you that legally, but don't go if you don't need to. Um, and so it's a lot of people we end up, just because of the nature of the way our job is designed, we end up almost hurting. Somebody who is immunocompromised doesn't need to go to the hospital. A lot of times if you are immunocompromised and you are sick, your best bet is to talk to your primary. The worst thing you can do is go to the place that is a cesspool of disease and just viruses. You aren't going to walk out of there better. You're not going to be healthier. Nothing about that's going to make your life better. Um, and it's even worse when it's kids, because the amount of times that we end up bringing kids to the hospital that it's like, this kid shouldn't be there. It's not a good place. It's not a good place for a kid. And I know that there is a massive amount of people who view the hospital as like a safe spot. It's safe. Oh, they'll make sure I'm better in the hospital. I could tell you from an incredible amount of experience, the hospital's not going to make you better. They'll figure out what's going on. They might be able to help, but they're not necessarily going to make you better. If you have a stomach bug, the hospital can't do shit. You just got to let that go through your system. Um, and I know a lot of people are like, well, I've been throwing up. Maybe they'll give me fluids. They can, but here's the other part: is fluids done IV don't nearly restore your body the same way fluids done like drinking them do. Like this is better than any IV you'll get because this will actually put fluids back in your body. And so the amount of time that people just go and it sucks because how am I helping you by bringing you somewhere that's dangerous, right? If you said I need help to somebody and they brought you to, the middle of a gang turf war, I mean, sure, they helped you and they brought you somewhere where, you might be able to find somebody to help you, but there's a gang turf war going around you. How would that help? What would happen with that? And so that is a huge, it's a massive problem that we deal with. Um, I there was, I want to say it was now 4, 3, 4 years ago, 3, 4 years ago. Um, I'm trying to think of the way to word this the right way without violating HIPAA or anything. I went to a pediatric patient who was under the age of 12, and this patient had pre-existing conditions and didn't have a good prognosis as was. It wasn't looking like it was going to be a good spot anyway. Like there was the chances of it being a happy and healthy life, not necessarily the greatest. But the patient was sick, and it was a little girl, and I brought her to the hospital. And yes, drink water and Gatorade perfect. Yes, also pickle juice. Pickle juice restores sodium better than most things. Um, but it was this little girl, sweet little girl. Like I brought her to the hospital, and I talked to her the whole time, and she was my daughter's age at the time. And I had a good conversation with her. It sounds silly to say it that way because she's just a little kid, but I had a good conversation with her. And I brought her to the hospital, and 12 hours later, she died. And she died in the hospital, which probably for the family they preferred. A lot of people don't necessarily want loved ones dying in their house, but it's not the right thing for the kid, right? Because I brought this little girl to the hospital who already had a poor prognosis. And instead of her being comfortable, she's getting jostled around from room to room, place to place. And she's away from her comfort. She's away from her space. And the fact that I can't say to the family, hey, the best thing for this child is just to let her be comfortable at home, call her primary. It sucks. It sucks. That one stayed with me for a long time too because of that. Because that was me doing my job the way my job is set up to do. And it's not helping anybody. It's not. Um, it was a really, really rough one. So it's worth looking at the fact that when you call 911, you can't say, hey, do I need to go to the hospital? The answer will always be yes. You called 911. My job is to take you from point A to point B. Should you go to the hospital? Again, I'm not going to answer that while I'm on a call, but that's the one that only you can really answer for yourself. But the bigger part is there has to be a level of reform, right? And it comes down to healthcare billing. It comes down to insurance billing. There's no more dangerous company or dangerous industry we have in this world than the healthcare industry. The industry designed to keep you sick, keep you hurt, keep you injured. And that's why I push so hard for, that's why I personally push for democratic socialism. I want to see a reform to healthcare. I want to see my job actually start saving more lives. It is it is a terrible thing to have to help people the wrong way. It sucks. It really starts to take it out of you. It's my job is hard enough when I deal with, I always say, if you're a medic, you're going to meet everybody on the worst day of their life. That's why most of us are callous. That's why most of us have a terrible sense of humor. We laugh at highly inappropriate things. Um, like if I was to ever run for office, people would find out that my inbox is full of us making the absolute grossest jokes possible. I have some really funny Charlie Kirk ones. Um, but it's because that's how, when you deal with the worst part of the world and you deal with everybody on the worst day of their life, that's how you survive. We don't do it because that's our coping mechanism. So it's the only way to really change that would be healthcare reform. And it would have been, it wouldn't have been an issue except for Ronald Reagan decided with the white pages to make it a state issue because of course he did, right? No, let's not let's not protect the people with healthcare. Let's not find a way to make 911 work for everybody. Let's just make it for people who have insurance. Um, and it was, he brought it to the state level and the states said, we'll get to it eventually. And then there were giant companies like Rural Metro, which became AMR, which is now owned by GMR, which is like a BlackRock subsidiary. And if you don't know what BlackRock is, they're the thing that owns everything in your neighborhood. It's there's an industry and a lobby designed to make sure that my job is never able to help you. So it's incredibly important that people are out there staying informed, that you vote early, vote for everything you can. Even if you think, hey, I don't know what this is for, look it up really quick and figure out because every vote matters. I talk about sometimes, I don't know if I've actually ever said it out loud. My dad, me and my dad don't have a good relationship. I've said many times about how he went out for milk when I was a kid and didn't come back. He ended up getting a second family. And I love my half brother, my half sister. It's kind of funny because my brother from my mom and my dad looks like the identical twin of my brother from my dad and my stepmom, except it looks like somebody race swapped him because he's half Cambodian. But if they stand next to each other, if you close your eyes, they sound like the same person. And if they stand next to each other, it literally looks like somebody did a palette swap of my brother. But he left when I was a kid. He was a somewhat successful guy for a few years and then wasn't. And then he ended up moving to Florida and, fairly certain he's got schizophrenia at this point. But he's back and, he's around for my kids, kind of. He wants to be around for my kids. The intention's there. The follow through sucks. But I'll talk to him. He'll text me every now and then. And he texted me the other day because he said he'd found my writing and he was reading my writings and everything. And he goes, well, what's the point of voting? Voting doesn't matter. Why should I bother? And I explained to him, I said, the amount of work that they are doing to make sure you never vote again should tell you how important it is to vote. If your vote didn't matter, if voting didn't matter, they wouldn't be trying to find a way to take it away from you. Yes, are there always, obviously with everything that came out about the dialogue convention of Peter Thiel, we know that there are incredibly rich people who are manipulating our government services. I put a whole bunch of receipts on one of the articles I did. Ted Cruz is, Raphael Ted Cruz. Don't ever let anybody forget his real name is Raphael. I will not accept his pronouns. Raphael Theodore Cruz is like one of the billionaire's top guys. He votes everything they want him to. The other one is Cory Booker, and Cory Booker and Hakeem Jeffries. They're both very much involved with it. But what's important to know, so like, my dad was saying, oh, it's this rich group, this rich cabal who just wants, he's the classic George Soros, Freemasons, all this. My dad was an Alex Jones guy back in the day. And, he was saying this, and I tried having that conversation with him. And I realized that somebody like him, if I was to put money on, I would say he probably voted for Trump too. He probably didn't vote, but if he did vote, he would have voted for Trump. And it's because somebody like him is so defeated that they just don't see the purpose of trying to have democracy. They don't see the purpose of their freedom. And when you get people to a level where they're so defeated, where it just seems like you're continuously fighting an uphill battle, that they give up, they stop trying, right? But that's the thing. So like we glorify a lot of people who are like, oh, they have it easy, or they have this, that, or the other thing. But we often forget that this whole life is a struggle. And the struggle's not the bad part. The struggle is what makes the good parts better. So we have to stop trying to glorify the fact that, oh, well, it doesn't matter. Stop falling into that despair of, there's nothing to do. There's always something to do. There's always an answer. There's always a way out. You just have to be willing to fight for it. And you can't give up that fight. And I say that because, again, watching this grown, I want to say he's 62, this grown 62-year-old man essentially just say he's given up and he just accepts what happens because George Soros made it that way. It's absolutely like mind-blowingly like depressing and defeatist. And there is nothing truer to the American spirit and who the American people are than looking at the powers that be, looking at the establishment and saying, no, fuck you. You're not going to win. That's what our country was founded on. Fuck you. You're not going to win. You got to have that that New England fucking mindset that we do up here. Fuck you. It's not going to happen. Where you want to find the most stubborn people in the world, come up to New England. And it just, that mindset needs to go throughout. It's do not let these people break you down. Do not let yourself get broken down. Sorry for that sidetrack there. Back to what I was talking about with healthcare, though. And back to what I was talking about with voting. The reason voting is so important in this upcoming election and the primaries. Healthcare needs to change. And I say that because more and more with the big, beautiful bill that happened, you're going to see a lot less ambulances. There's already a massive paramedic shortage. And I mean massive. There was a story, and I can't remember, I want to say it was Oklahoma or Kansas, that there was a medic who they had over 3 years in overtime alone made $1 million. Understand what that means. That does not mean that medics get paid a lot. That means that there was so much overtime that this guy was working, earning double time and triple time regularly for 3 years. That is how poorly we are staffed. On average, so I live in, I work in the city of Syracuse. I work outside. I work right outside of Syracuse, but and for the population of Syracuse, I'll tell you in a second. The current population is 144,000 to 148,000. And that was the 2020 census. So, I mean, after COVID, we can probably add almost 100,000 to that. But the population there is, 100, we'll say 150,000. The city of Syracuse at any given time has 6 ambulances. That is 6 ambulances for 150,000 people. And that is because the city of Syracuse uses a private contractor. They use AMR. AMR won't put ambulances out if they're not going to make money. That means that they're not going to. And so if there's no money to be made for them, they don't pay their people. AMR is probably one of the highest turnover rates. I mean, on top of being a paramedic position, which is just burnout city, you work in corporate field with it, and it's just the grossest of the gross. You want to find the most evil people in the world, look at corporate EMS management. But 150,000 people, 6 ambulances, 6. And like in the city of Syracuse, AMR does 4 12-hour shifts. So you work, when I worked there for a long time, and my shift used to be 3 p.m. to 3 a.m. And you do 4 days on, 4 days off. It sucks. It sucks. It's 48 hours a week, and you feel every hour of it. You don't get sleep because you get out late. You have to go in early because you have to get your ambulance ready and all your equipment checked. And so you're exhausted. Like, that is the most grueling 48 hours you will do. It is almost impossible to do with a family, especially with young kids. I couldn't, that was one of the biggest things for me, is I couldn't do it with young kids. And then you are continuously going 911 call to 911 call to 911 call. There's no stopping to get dinner. You're lucky if you can stop to go to the bathroom. You are going to the hospital, you're dropping a patient off, and then you are getting in your ambulance and going to the next call. In 12 hours, my record was I ran 18 calls. That is an insane amount of time spent trying to take care of people. And it's because our field is based on bringing people to the hospital. It's not based on treating people. It's not based on helping people. And so we don't get tax money. Some local cities and municipalities may, have a tax stipend for the ambulances, but we don't get tax money. There's no federal money. We're technically under the Department of Transportation. We're not even under like public health. We're not under, public safety. None of it. We're under the Department of Transportation. We are under the same umbrella as, the guys who plow these streets. And so it is important that we get healthcare, that we have healthcare reform. It is so important. You're going to start seeing how much more important it is, because paramedics are not going to we're not going to be around. They're getting rid of our jobs. The companies that can't afford us are getting rid of them, and the companies that can't afford us can't afford us. And, I can't afford to work somewhere and not pay my bills. So please, please, please be active. Your local elections. If you have a local election out there that there's a candidate you really like, you really believe in, I don't care if he's Republican, Democrat, I don't care if he's Green Party, whatever. If there's a candidate out there that really will make a change and that you truly believe in, that will truly fight for your community and your people, I beg you, bring the name to me. I will happily talk about them. I will happily look into them. I will do everything I can to support people who will make our country better. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to need your help, because all of us live in different locations. I've yet to find somebody I know a couple people locally who live around me, but I've yet to find people who are like, I live here, who I just randomly have as a subscriber. But if there is a local politician who genuinely you believe in, you think will actually be the one that will make the biggest difference, bringing them to me, and I will champion the fuck out of them. Because it is about time that we start showing the world that we are not going to accept defeat. We are going to, to steal their own phrase, we're going to make America great again. But I'm not talking about some 1950s, 1960s bullshit. I'm talking we're going to show them what the American spirit really is. The fuck you, we're not going to let you oppress us, and we're not going to take it. We're going to have that John Brown spirit, all right? Those of you who don't know who John Brown is, do yourself a favor. Read up. The Good Lord Bird. Highly recommend the show. But I want us to work together. We're going to figure this out. And I am more than willing to do what I can to champion different politicians. So please, I say this a lot. I am very, I stay very active with the comments, and I pay attention to almost everything people say. Sometimes too much. I acknowledge that I tend to go too much sometimes. But together we can actually do this and we can make a change. All right. And I need your help to do that. And so please stay informed, stay alert, stay prepared. Do not let them defeat you. Do not let them beat you. We are in this together. Um, and so I thank all of you for joining me today. As I said, stay informed, stay alert, and get ready for it to be being. I just looked it up for Spokane, where I live. Sure enough, yep, Spokane does have AMR. It is huge in Spokane. Yes, and the ones that operate their own ambulance, you have to also look at, because they'll operate their own ambulance, and a lot of times they run it as a fire department ambulance. And the problem with running a fire department ambulance is you are taking firefighters and putting them on an ambulance, and they may have a paramedic card, but they're not a paramedic. I will fight any firefighter any day of the week on that one. You can be a firefighter, you can be a paramedic, you can't be a firefighter paramedic. But again, for all of you, I very much so hope I can do my part to help you do your part so we can make this better. So again, stay informed, stay awake, stay alert, stay woke, and I look forward to talking to you all again. Have a good night.